Hi, everyone. Hi. How would you feel about doing a little thought experiment with me, just to kick things off? I want you to think about what you would do if no one paid you. I know. If no one paid you, it could be work, it could even be what you do now, it could be something totally different. So take a sec and think about it. You can even write it down, write it on your phone. What would I do if no one paid me? Now, what do people expect me to be? People expect me to be. People you work with, people you live with, your family, your friends. Take a sec and think about that too. What do you think about the answers to both of those questions? Do you see a disconnect? Sometimes when I ask people these questions, they have a lot of synergy. And oftentimes it's, what would I do if no one paid me? I would cook, or I'd open a restaurant, or I'd write, or I'd just go and have lots of alone time to think and do my thoughts. Or I wouldn't work at all. Or I would do my job, but I would do it totally differently. And then I ask people, what's expected of me? I'm supposed to be good. I'm supposed to be nice. I'm supposed to be on time. I'm supposed to be perfect. I'm supposed to be reliable. All the things. I'm supposed to have the answers. People expect me never to have the answers. And for a lot of us, there's a disconnect. And so today, I want to imagine a world, maybe, with less of a disconnect. I want to talk about, though, first, the things that we do to ourselves. We turn ourselves into pretzels. We do what we think we should. We act like we think we're supposed to. We mask. We hide. We try really hard to live up to expectations. It's exhausting. It's exhausting. And here's what I know, and you know it too. Every leader has their strengths and their weaknesses. Every leader, right? Every leader has their superpowers and their kryptonite. And we spend a lot of time trying to get better at our weaknesses. We spend way too much time trying to get better at our weaknesses because it's what we're taught to do from school. My friend Sanyan Shang says, even at a job interview, what are you asked? What's your weakness? What do you need to improve on? At performance reviews, right? We just focus a lot on the weaknesses. But here's what I also know, and you know it too. Great leaders know their strengths. They know their superpowers, and they play to them. They play to their strengths. They find the right fit. They find the place where their strengths are valued and needed. And there's another piece, though. Great leaders set good expectations for themselves and for other people and for their team. They set clear expectations. They set reasonable expectations. It sounds basic, but to me, this is like the secret of life. It's so, so powerful. And so today, I want to focus a little bit on our strengths and our expectations. And maybe we'll do some tweaking. Now, you all are in a session for people with tricky brains. We're special. It is even more important for us to know our strengths and not fixate on our weaknesses, because a lot of us are spiky. We're spiky. We're like really amazing at what we're amazing at. And we have a lot of challenges. What do I mean by a tricky brain? It is not a scientific term, okay? It comes from my almost 20 years of researching and trying to figure out, frankly, for myself, how to make work better when your brain just works differently. Leaders with tricky brains might be neurodistinct. They might be neurodivergent, right? They might have a diagnosis somewhere on a spectrum. They might have anxiety. They might have depression. They might have a mental illness. They might have a learning difference. They might just be wired differently. We're tricky. And we're spiky. And the thing is, we get dinged at work for what we're not so great at. And it's really frustrating. I call it being amazing at your craft and bad at your job. I've worked with leaders who have ADHD, for example. Amazing at their craft, at what they love to do. Visionary, energetic, can literally see things where other people can't see things. But struggle to keep up with their email. Struggle to pay attention in meetings. I mean, we all do, right? Get dinged for their attention to task. Blurt things out in meetings. I've interviewed leaders on the autism spectrum, one of whom I'm thinking of. He was brought in and he figured out a problem that had been plaguing the organization for like 2 years. They had had consultants, they had brought in new teams, they couldn't figure this out. It was like a complex change management deal. And he figured it out, he made it easy. That was the feedback, like you came in and you made it easy for us, like you solved this. And then at the same time, in his review, he got feedback that he was too analytical, that he got too lost in the details, and that his executive presence needed some work. I think of an experience I've had for many years. You know, I've written about this a lot. I have a very complicated relationship with my clinical anxiety. It drives me nuts, but at the same time, it gives me drive, it gives me energy. It gives me the ability to really stand up in a crisis. It's a piece of me. And yet, I've been told, I can't even count how many times, well, I should cure it. There's a cure for it. If only I took more vitamin D or I meditated. It's exhausting. I learned that Albert Einstein probably didn't say this quote, but I like it. So, trying to be what you're not, it feels terrible, right? And I get a lot of feedback from the people that I work with and that I interview, that they spend a lot of time feeling ashamed and trying to be what they're not. Now, I'm going to assume you're smart and you're ambitious and you're successful, and you're here at South by Southwest. I also bet that you get really frustrated with your brain sometimes. Maybe you wrestle with worry and dread. Maybe anxiety is your oxygen. Maybe you're sensitive and you take things really personally. Maybe you struggle with authority. Maybe email is your Achilles heel. Maybe you sit in meetings and you get bored and you think, oh my God, why can't people hurry up and get to the point? Like, I was there. I've been there for a while. Maybe you get frustrated. And maybe you're your own harshest critic. A lot of us have a more intimate relationship with our inner critic than with most other people in our lives. It's a habit. We've been doing it so long, we don't know any other way to be, right? But with practice and with self-awareness, we can pull back on the critic. We can tell it to chill out. So we don't diminish ourselves every damn day. Now, why am I telling you all of this? So like I said, for about 17 years, I've been researching and looking at all the literature and interviewing experts and interviewing people like me, maybe people like us, who have done big things while managing their tricky brain. I have spent a lot of time in the field of strengths-based education. This was my side hustle for many, many years. I was a political consultant and issue advocacy consultant by day for about 25 years. But I just couldn't get this question out of my mind. Why does work suck for so many people like me, even though we're so smart and capable? Why is work so, what's so hard about this, right? How can we make this better? And so here's what I know from the successful leaders like us. They take their mental health really seriously, like brushing their teeth seriously, like no questions asked. My mental health is a piece of me, and it's part of my routine. They ask for help. And this is, those of us who've been raised in sort of the Western leadership model of the big, strong person standing at the front of the room telling everyone what to do, right? That's kind of a mind bender for us. But I bet if you reflect back on the great leaders that you've worked with, maybe you are one, asking for help, especially for what you're not so great at, is key. And the leaders that I've interviewed and worked with know how to ask for help. They let go of old stories, and they have a lot of stories. They let them go at some point. This isn't serving me anymore. They push themselves really hard to get better at what they're amazing at. but they also sort of accept what they can't do. They just accept it. And they hire great people who can do it. And they're kind to themselves. They're kind to themselves. They push themselves hard and they hold themselves to high standards, but they're kind. And above all, they are self-actualized, which means that they live life according to their own value system, to what they've defined as a good life, not what other people do. This really messed with me because for almost 50 years, what has stumped me more than my bipolar disorder and my anxiety and my depression and my neurodivergence and all my stuff is my relentless perfectionism, my maddening need to meet everyone else's expectations and my own unrealistic expectations. And then I kind of realized a couple of years ago, like, I actually need to take the advice of the almost 1,000 people, maybe more, that I've interviewed. I'm never going to have any peace if I don't. Because every single one of us has a version of ourselves that we think we're supposed to be. And a version of ourselves that we hide. We hide it because we think it makes us look strange, or we think it makes us seem not smart enough, or we think it makes us look like we don't fit in, or we're not a leader. And sometimes we've been hiding since our childhood. And sometimes we learn at work along the way. And when we learn a life of hiding, of not being self-actualized, we become limited. You've had the boss that erupts in rage and you don't know why. You've had the boss that is all of a sudden in your business, will not leave you alone, like smothering you. You've had the boss who you feel like you are a prisoner to their emotions. We become limited when we hide, when we don't explore our weaknesses and feel the sometimes hard emotions that go along with it. We become limited in our communication and our ability to take on risks and challenges and how we show up every day for our teams. But the magic is that the opposite is true. When we embrace who we are, when we stop hiding, when we feel the really complicated and hard emotions around exploring what might really be our weaknesses and who we really are, we become free. We become free. We become the authentic, amazing leaders that we read about in the news. And so I believe that everyone has a story. We all have parts that we learn to hide. And when we stop hiding and learn how to handle them, we become great leaders and free to access the best parts of ourselves and free to imagine new ways to work, which we desperately need right now. We need new ways to work. I think of Ennis Olsen, who's a senior executive at a large tech company, which I won't name. And Ennis is on the autism spectrum and he has ADHD. And he told me that for a long time, he really felt bad about himself. He knew that he was good at what he did, but he'd say, sometimes I would get to work on a Tuesday and I just couldn't get anything done. And it was like the day was wasted and I felt so guilty. But then on a Friday, and maybe even on a Saturday, I was on fire. I'd crank out like a week's worth of work And sometimes, he says, I say things in meetings, I just don't think about it, and I kick myself. I think, why did I say that? But Ennis did the work, and now he's a leader. And he builds his teams around what he calls neuroconvergence, which is that everyone has blind spots. Everyone has weaknesses. We can't all do it well. And we build the team that supports each other. Great leaders do this. And so my first piece of advice is to be boldly bad at things. Just be bad. I mean, a great example is that fish is bad at climbing a tree. How much better would the world be if we gave ourselves permission to just be bad at things and move on? If we just were open, or we were free to say, I try. Email is something I really struggle with. So if you need to reach me, here's how. What do you struggle with? Or I get anxious sometimes, and when I get anxious, I become a micromanager. It's not about you. It's me. And you can tell me to back off. It's okay. I won't be offended. Or I'm never going to do Excel, and that's okay. Speaking from personal. We are not raised to be bad at things. It feels almost subversive. As a mom of 3 kids, it definitely does not feel like the experience of school, that's for sure. But I believe, and maybe you believe too, that what leadership really is understanding who your people are and giving them the freedom to be great, warts and all, and supporting people where they need it. That's leadership. So, I'm bad at a lot of things. I have a Post-it note on my desk that says think before you speak. Because I'm a blurter. Is anyone here a blurter? Yeah, it's not fun. And I've tried meditating, and I've tried cognitive behavioral therapy, and I've tried all the things, and I still blurt. And even as a kid, I blurted things out in class, and I was always getting in trouble for it. The teachers always had to talk to my mom. I was smart, and I was like, oh yeah, I know this. And I was always getting in trouble for it. I always felt like I needed to be different. And my inner dialogue, even to this day, is full of fear and shame and criticism. And I've always had a difficult time managing relationships at work, managing conflict. I never got promoted when I worked for other people. I could get hired, but for some reason I couldn't get promoted, and I couldn't figure out why. I say the wrong thing. I sit in meetings and I think, come on guys. But then I talk and people don't understand me because I'm not linear. I go from A to Z to C to D to D to D to D, and it makes perfect sense in my head, but maybe not for everyone else in the room. And then I just feel bad about myself, and I think, oh my God, why can't you talk? And for many years, I was my own worst enemy. And I knew I was special. And I was successful, too. But it was such a double-edged sword. Something kept getting in my way. I was an anxious, hypervigilant child from the jump. But it was, when I was 19, I had a really, really severe panic attack at college that led me to get help. And I was diagnosed with what back then they called cyclothymia, and now they call bipolar II disorder, and major depression, and anxiety. And my mental health has always been a part of me and of my journey. I've had 5 very severe depressions in my adult life. The worst was when I was pregnant with my first son. That was scary, because you're pregnant and everyone's like, oh, you're pregnant, I'm so happy for you. I couldn't handle it. And then most recently, about in 2021, 22, I had a really severe depression, the likes of which, I hadn't had in over a decade. And it was really scary, and I had to take a leave from work. And, it was scary. And I have a lot of privilege. And I've always had a lot of privilege. And I've had access to great medical care. And I have a psychiatrist and a therapist, and I take a lot of medication. And when I was 45, I started taking a new medication, and it really changed my life. And I only tell you this to say that a different brain is a really hard thing, especially when you want a big life, a big career. My career, until I started my own business, always felt like a start and then a stop, and then let's try again. Oh, maybe not. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. I knew I was bipolar, but why was work so hard for me? Why do fluorescent lights make me feel like I'm gonna have a migraine and I'm nauseous? Why are the things that are so easy for other people at work so hard for me? But also, why am I so creative, and I write books, and I start businesses, and I get more done in a day sometimes than a lot of people in a week? Why? Something was always getting in my way. This is me during that bad depression a few years ago, getting transcranial magnetic stimulation, which is really unpleasant. It's a treatment for medication-resistant depression, and they basically zap your brain every hour for 7 hours a day. And this is me about 2 years later, being named one of the world's most influential leadership thinkers. No, you don't have to clap for that. Thank you, the overachiever in me appreciates that. My point is, I'm both. So many of us, we're both. We're both people. We want big things, and we want to live big lives and be happy. And sometimes we're happy. But inside, it's a struggle. We go out and we perform every day, and inside, it's a struggle. I don't know how many of you can relate. And then something happened. By this time, I had interviewed probably thousands of people about their tricky brains, about how to make work better. I had interviewed leaders with anxiety and depression, with bipolar disorder, who were on the autism spectrum, who had ADHD, who had borderline personality disorder, who had a history of trauma, who had failed spectacularly and lost all their money and had to file for bankruptcy, who had had really, really hard childhoods, who were dyslexic or had a learning disability. And themes kept popping up. Often it was the hero's journey arc. A really hard early life and a big failure or a big trauma or a big challenge. And then a rebuilding. And then a rebuilding. And I would always ask myself, how did they keep going? How did they keep going and find that fit for their incredible strength? Was it true that you had to be touched with fire? As Kay Redfield Jamison so famously wrote about bipolar and creativity many years ago. What was the secret? And I think the successful ones, they figure out how to become self-actualized, how to take care of themselves, how to get help, and how to play to their strengths and manage expectations. That's what they do. And I sort of had this like midlife aha moment where I was like, maybe this is me. This is so many of the people that I love, that I live with. I'm a neurodivergent, introverted, highly sensitive, anxious achiever. And I don't mind my labels. And it was through my challenges that I found my hidden superpower, which is that when I work with people, they feel free to be themselves. I can help people melt through shame like dish soap through grease, so that they can be free to find their gifts. But I was never going to be able to do that if I stopped living up to everyone's expectations and living on that hamster wheel. So we're going to do some exercises now, because I want you to be thinking about this too. And here's what the literature, the research, and certainly my research shows about what great leaders do when they have tricky brains, but it's probably what all great leaders do. They play to their strengths. They learn how to become their own best friend, not an enemy. And they reset and right-size expectations. I want to just take a quick minute and show you how to be your own best friend in a minute. So maybe you'll you'll uncross your legs and put your feet on the floor. And, get comfy. And you can close your eyes. And I want you to think about 3 things that you're grateful for this morning. Just 3 things. It can be a small thing like the fabulous cup of coffee you had. It can be a big thing like the love you feel for someone in your life. Think of 3 things that you're grateful for today. And now, I want you to think of 3 things that you are really good at, that you're proud of, that's special about you. It could be anything from like, I make an incredible birthday cake, to I'm solving world peace. It doesn't matter. I want you to think of 3 things that you're good at. That's it. Do you feel different? So you can do this anytime during your workday. It takes a minute. Anytime. You can teach your kids how to do it. Play to your strengths. Do you know your strengths? Can you articulate them clearly to yourself and to other people? Take a minute. Think about it. Seems like an easy question, but sometimes it's a really hard question. What am I great at my job? What do I do that's different? Maybe what comes easily for me and feels hard for other people. What are my strengths? So think about your strengths. And then I want you to come on another thought experiment with me. And maybe turn off your inner editor for this one. I want you to imagine your perfect day at work. Your perfect day at work. It might feel strange and unrealistic, but I really want you to think about it. What's your perfect day at work? Are you in your current role, or are you doing something different? Are you in your current role, but the environment is different? What does it sound like, smell like, feel like? Are you alone? Or are you with lots of people collaborating? Are you in one place? Or are you running around or driving in your car? Or is it varied? Are you busy, busy, busy? Or do you have lots of space? Think about it. And actually, what I'd love you to do is turn to your neighbor and share, just for a couple minutes. And then one person go first, and then I'll tell you when to switch.
I met you there as part of the Rex.
Oh, yeah. All right, now switch. All right, I want you to start wrapping it up. Okay. Can anyone whistle? Nice job, thank you. Thank you. Anybody want to stand up and share anything? What your perfect day is? Or something you learned about your partner's perfect day? Stand up so they can hear you. And tell us your name.
My name is Monica, and my perfect day is getting to my email. Like, if I got that far in my day, I feel like I did a good job.
How long do you have to then spend on your email uninterrupted?
No, I'm like sweating just
So your perfect day is when you can get to your email. You got to it, because you haven't been in meetings all day. Got it. Yeah, and then that's your perfect day. I totally hear you. Anyone else? Yeah.
I feel like something that me and my neighbor had in common, which I feel like a lot of us do, is being able to have a day that has balance in general, no matter what it is. A time that has a lot of productivity where we feel really good about ourselves, and then a time to step away and also just have a break where we can be patient with ourselves and feel okay that we're actually taking that break, and because we'll then turn around and be really super productive in huge bursts again.
Yes. I love that. So your perfect day is you're productive, you're on it, but then you have time where you're not anxious and you're not guilty to be kind to yourself and do, yeah, how many of you would like that? That sounds pretty good. Okay, one more, if anyone else wants to share. Sure. Oh, okay, two more. You go first because you were standing up.
Okay, so I work with my family, my sister and my dad, and we just were talking and we realized that we don't have a lot of time together because we're always taking care of so much things aside that the perfect day would be just being together and thinking about the business together.
I love that. So you work with your family, you're with your family, but even though you work together, you don't have a lot of time together, and it would be awesome just to have some time. Yeah. All right, bring us home.
Hello, my name is Javier. So many years ago, I knew that I loved speaking with other people, and I finally made it happen. And so in present day, an ideal day is when I can actually speak as opposed to working on sales or marketing and administrative functions. But that's an ideal day when I can actually go out there and actually speak.
Wow, so your ideal day is public speaking. God, you are an unusual specimen, my friend. Would you like to trade with me?
I'm grateful that a fellow speakers here with me have been out there for a while and had a chance to do so.
That's awesome. Hi.
happy to like continue to speak, and I think the fun part, so I work in the wellness space and happiness space, and working with leaders and culture and thinking about exactly what you're talking about, and having high performing teams and leveraging their strengths to be able to have them also have their perfect day.
Yeah.
I feel like makes me unbelievably happy.
Everyone should have their perfect day. Yes. Now, it's never going to happen. But this is a really fun question to bring back to your team. Because it spurs a lot of thinking, and then it's like, okay, if your perfect day is you need more time to be alone, to get work done, maybe we can make that happen. And as you're thinking about your strengths, which if it wasn't easy for you to come up with them, spend some time, that's your homework. How do they align with what's valued in your organization? And how do they align with what you actually do every day? Like, are you in the right fit? Tricky brains need to be in the right fit. And then, where do I need help? If I don't have anywhere near my perfect day, or my perfect day could be made by letting me work from home on Fridays, is that something I could ask for? Can I get some help? No big deal. We all need help. I want to switch and finish with expectations. High achievers face great expectations. You're all here. I'm going to assume we're all pretty high-achieving people. Excellence is important to us. And we've been through school, and we've been through work, and we've been through coaching and sports and arts. And we've gotten a lot of messages about expectations. I bet we've ticked a lot of boxes, and we've crushed a lot of goals. And I'd wager also that we've learned that when we feel like we meet someone's expectation, we get validation. It feels really good. Like gold star, yes. We may set high expectations for ourselves. We may set high expectations for other people. And other people may set high expectations for us. But we also may not know what other people's expectations are for us. We may just be assuming out of habit. We may feel like we need to show up and be perfect, and other people just like expect us to show up. High achievers face great expectations. And the big aha moment that I love perhaps most of anything from all my research is that it doesn't get better for a lot of us the more successful we get. Adam Wright is a sports psychologist. He works with professional athletes. A lot of us are our own worst enemies. We use our enemy to keep us motivated. I use my anxiety to keep me motivated. And for a long time, it actually kind of works. It works. Or we may attract bosses who treat us like an enemy to keep us motivated, because that's all we know. It works until it doesn't work. And the other thing that we know that I hear over and over again, and this is a quote from one of my listeners, is that this stuff starts early. We learn to meet expectations. We learn to tie our self-worth to what other people we think expect of us. And those become our expectations. And it's really a bummer if we're spiky, because we may be amazing at some things and get a lot of external validation, but we may feel like we constantly fail at other things. Or we may feel like we never meet expectations. I've worked with so many leaders who are ADHD, and they're late. They're late. And then people just, and my own personal life as well, you just are expected to kind of be late. And that doesn't feel good either. And these things start early, and they run deep. I think of my friend and my colleague, Newton Chang. Newton has a big job at one of the world's largest companies. And he's a 5-time world champion power lifter. Okay, which means he takes like giant weights and hoists them in the air. And he's a dad, and he's a husband, and he's a communitarian. And Newton hears the voice, the enemy in his head, that critic, and it tells him, you're lazy. You're lazy. He's not lazy. He's won gold medals. But he hears that voice, and he said to me, it wasn't from my parents. Like, my parents were great. I don't even know where I picked up the voice that I'm lazy, but it's what I hear. And it worked for him for a long time until it didn't. And he kind of crashed and burned. He took a mental health leave from work, and it was hard for him to rebuild. And he kind of had to look at that voice and think, whose voice is this? Do I want to keep hearing this voice? Because I do have a choice. Newton was stuck in a thought trap. We all get stuck in thought traps. But the people that I work with really get stuck in thought traps. They are automatic negative thoughts. They become habits. Like, we've been doing them for so long, we don't know how not to do them. Imposter feelings, all or nothing thinking. How many of you are catastrophizers? You get one piece of bad news and it's like, oh my God, everything is ending? Yes. That's a thought trap. It is literally probably not true. But it's what your brain does. Emotional reasoning, I feel it, therefore it must be true. Perfectionism. And then your critic. How many of you have a critic inside you? That's awesome. A lot of you don't. I'm so amazed. How many of you use your inner critic to motivate you? Yeah. I think that's okay, as long as you're kind of in touch with it and it's not that automatic habit. How many of you feel like your critic is really draining you? Yeah. Is your inner critic just an old expectation that needs to be changed? Just an old story that's like not helpful anymore? Think about it. Who does that critic sound like? Is there a voice? Is it a character? Is it a memory? Who taught you the critic? How did you pick it up? That can take years of therapy. My critic, I call her Mom. And when she shows up, I just go, hi, Mom. Not right now, Mom. Thanks, Mom. Your critic is there for a reason. It may have served its purpose, and it may be time for it to change. And so one last piece of homework is there an expectation that you're ready to let go of? Think back if you thought of expectations in our very first exercise. People expect me to be. Maybe there's one that just doesn't work anymore. And maybe just choose it to say goodbye and do more of what you would do for free and of what makes your heart sing. So I want to close, and hopefully we'll have some time for questions. I want to close with the story of Abraham Lincoln. And I find Lincoln very personally inspiring. We all know that he was one of our greatest leaders. And we know that he was funny, and he was an incredible speaker. And he brought opposing perspectives and teams together. And he was able to look at soldiers who were terrified and war widows during the Civil War. He was able to see them and feel their empathy and make them feel seen. He was truly one of our greatest leaders. But Lincoln was clinically depressed for almost all his life. His former law partner in Illinois said that the melancholy dripped from him as he walked. There are numerous stories of him standing up and giving a speech and charming the room, right? Famous addresses. But then you would catch a glimpse of him in the corner, and he would be so sad. How many of you have performed through the pain? Lincoln borrowed money from a lot of people. When he was really depressed, People took him in and fed him. They hid razors from him. Lincoln never carried a pocket knife because he was scared of when he might feel what he called a moment of the hypo. Hypo was what he called his depression coming on. Historian Nancy Kane from Harvard has written a lot about this. And so Lincoln was very open about his depression. He was so open about the fact that he needed help from when he was a young lawyer right up until the White House. If you knew Lincoln, you knew what you were getting. But he channeled that experience with great pain. And I'm sure he had a tricky brain, and he channeled it into power and empathy, and above all, leadership. And we can too. I know we can. And we can give that gift to other people too. Thank you. I will take a couple questions, and also there's nothing in this room after, so if you have questions, feel free. Oh, these are great, good questions. What about imposter syndrome? How do we get past feeling like we don't belong, even when we're considered the experts? So, the thing about imposter syndrome that's a little bit like being your worst enemy is that research shows that imposter syndrome, actually the higher you climb in your career, you feel it just as much. But I don't think imposter syndrome's all bad. And actually, there's research out of MIT that shows that people with workplace imposter feelings, because imposter syndrome isn't actually a syndrome. People with imposter feelings at work are often rated higher by their peers because they can be quite outward-facing. They take account of other people. Maybe they're meeting unfair expectations, yes. But again, it's this double-edged sword. I want to be attuned to what this person expects and wants and needs from me. I'm other-oriented. Doctors who experience workplace imposter feelings were actually rated as more empathetic and trustworthy by their patients in a recent MIT study. So I guess what I would say, if you struggle with imposter syndrome, is it serving me or is it draining me? And is there a way that I can be in dialogue with it without trying to cure it? Because a lot of these things, for us sensitive people who might run a little anxious or have experienced the world because of who we are in a way that makes us anxious, talking about a cure is just, it's not worth it. How do I get the space to be patient with myself when others won't? That is something I think we all struggle with. And I think the key is really asking for what you need and doing the best possible job when you can. We hide because we think if we hide, people won't notice we're struggling. But people are smart. We think, oh my God, I'm not going to get promoted if they know that sometimes I struggle with my email or I lose focus. If you're doing it anyway, why hide? Get what you need. And I'll leave you with this. The thing that I know from doing this work for a really long time is that everyone has a story. We all struggle with something. And when we can understand that, we make it better for everyone. So thank you.